welcome to another show of Lifting Your Spirit, a monthly broadcast in which we interview people about their spiritual lives and how they've shared that journey with others. I'm Reverend Joel Grossman, interfaith minister, Director of Spiritual Services at Constellation Hospice here in Newburyport, and offer spiritual counseling on a donation basis virtually.
And I'm Ted Jones, a meditation teacher at North Shore Inside Meditation Center.
So our show is based on the four following assumptions. Number one, everyone is spiritual. Sometimes we're conscious and active in our spiritual lives, sometimes not. But even when we're not, we still have a spirit.
Second, that there are many ways to lift your spirit, not only through formal religious practices, but through nature, art, human relationships, just to name a few.
Third, each person's spiritual path is unique and may change in small or large ways over time.
And fourth, that it's important to respect your own spiritual journey, trusting that it's going to unfold one step at a time, and to respect the uniqueness of other people's spiritual journeys, even though they may be very different from their own. We're not here to promote any particular approach to spirituality or any particular methods. Rather, we're just trying to offer some food for thought.
So I'm very pleased to have as our guest today Russo, who's been an important person in the community for many years.
Thank you.
A yoga teacher, a Reiki master, an artist, and many other things which we'll be covering. So welcome, Rose.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. And everything that the program is all about is what I'm about as well. Is these are the ways that I have come into my own spiritual understanding. And it really kind of started when I was a child. I was raised in a beautiful home, you know, that had my mother was Italian, so she had the ability to give me another view of religion from another country. She came over here as a war bride. And it began to broaden my experience. And then when I had cancer at 42, started a whole nother level of spirituality that took me into a whole different place. And really today, that is what I teach from, is that understanding. And I use cancer as a basis, really, because it really was that part of my journey that jolted me. Sometimes we need a little bit of a shake-up. Cancer is really one of those ones where you go, nobody wants to hear that, hear the news of that. But when it does come to your door, it's like, what do you do with that? And you go through the phases that you go through. And I ended up, of course you could go through like, oh, my body and this and all this other, I don't trust my body anymore. And you do have to have a different relationship with your body. So I always tell the people, there's life before cancer and there's life after cancer. And there really is a line, it kind of goes from there. But that really was my experience going deeper into this practice. I did not do yoga before cancer at all.
I'm curious about that time.
Yes.
Growing up in a home with an Italian mother, who I assume was Catholic, is that?
Yes, and my father as well.
Okay.
Kind of came into that. My father was kind of a guy of the street, so.
So you grew up Catholic?
I did.
And did you remain a practicing Catholic?
I actually didn't.
You didn't?
I did not. Much of my mother was probably, oh my God. No, I really didn't. But, because my mother's way of looking at Catholicism was so different from the American way of looking at Catholicism, it was really kind of interesting for me how, in my mind, there was such a difference. In Italy, I'm making a broad statement here, but in Italy, it's a lifestyle. It's not just you go to, church and then you jockey around to get out of the parking lot at the right time or anything like that. It's it's a lifestyle of kindness. It's a lifestyle of singing. It's a lifestyle of working. It's a lifestyle of cooking from that place of something that's deeper. And so, it really wasn't supported in kind of my church where I grew up with in the Catholicism. But my understanding, I just kind of, I look at it like I grew out of Catholicism. And for me personally, I'm not, saying this for anybody else. For me personally, it's like I needed a much broader way of expanding into my understanding of spirit. Of really working with the more universal ways of looking at the world, of being in the world. I kept seeing the unity of thing, not the division of religion or people or anything like that. I kept seeing how we're united and not divided. And the minute you start putting lines into things, like I still can't. Putting lines into things, it's like, wait a minute. That to me is a world I don't want to live in. I'm already in this place where, I love the idea of how we are so different and yet all come to the same place. And so for me, that was very exciting.
And do you recall kind of when that sort of vision of unity emerged for you? I mean, how old you were, whether there were kind of seminal events?
Yeah, I went to an art college. So, there was already a kind of like an expansion. I went to art college in the 70s in New York City. So,
right, to Pratt, yeah.
To Pratt, yes.
Very famous art college.
Yes. And we were in Bed-Stuy, which is a very black community. So here we are, we're mixed in with groups of people from all over the world coming in, to go to the art college with architecture, engineering. There were a lot of things that are connected with Pratt. And of course, you're in New York City, so it's the melting pot of everything. I think that when I started to do dance, I did dance there, and so I got very physical in my body. Thank goodness for dance. I don't know that I would have survived Pratt without that, and these some very, very dear friends of mine that I did find along the way. Which is, of course, the universe does do that. You're always, if you're looking for help and guidance, you're going to find it, and so thank God I did find it. But I think as is the spiritual journey itself, it was slow. It was slow. Like I began to recognize that I didn't want to be in a church. I wanted to be outside. Native culture meant a lot to me. Like just, their practices, the way in which they connected to the earth. Like I recognized my desire to be with the earth in the same way that they were. So I began to study a lot of Native American writings and their culture and, again, what ended up happening to them in this country as well, but that they survived is a miracle to me. So just like they survived enough to tell us some things of what they did. So the more I got into other ways of being on this earth, that's when things started shifting and changing for me. And the church became very political, and I was like, it was easy for me to off from that perspective, because when I'm in the woods and I'm listening to birds and I'm in nature and I'm having some experience with the moon or the sun or a light or something, there's nothing but me in that. And I began to really want that. I wanted more of the direct connection. This is before cancer.
Yes.
This is before cancer.
And I'm wondering how that sort of informed your experience of cancer, coming from a place where you were evolving spiritually, and then this you know.
But, at the same time, when I really look back at all of that,
Yeah.
I was also working like a maniac. I was doing graphic design. I'm self-employed, so working as a graphic designer. At that time, we were shifting our profession from, this is going to sound crazy, but we're shifting our perspective from being in the desk, physically involved, walking around and doing all kinds of stuff, to being in a computer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and that is like a whole program that I know nothing about, a computer I know nothing about, and I still needed to pay my tax and my rent and my mortgage and everything else that I needed to. So I was under such stress to learn this program and stay with it, and whatever I learned, and then a project would come in, and how am I going to do that? It was such a stressful time for me. So a lot of things went by the wayside as things go, like attention, intention, like where your attention is going is, and it is mind, body, spirit, the big triangle. So I would say that I was abusing my body at the time, and even my spirit, and my mind had taken over. Like at a point when my mind would, like I'd say, my body would go, oh, please stop, stop already, stop. And I'd go, oh, no, I need to push through. And so that means like maybe I didn't even spend time eating, or maybe I just had an egg, or like, I'm not even it's like, I have to make money to make, So you take enough of that, your body takes enough of that, and then before you know it, it's going, all right, now you're stopping. That's it. You're done. It's a little reality check. Here you go. First mammogram. First one ever. I was 42. First one ever. She goes, oh, I see something. I go, what you mean you see something? And I was like, oh, no, this can't be. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it can be. So that just started my journey. So thank goodness I had opportunities before, but there was a point to where I was really pretty intense in how I was doing my life. And in the end, and this is what I teach from, in the end, those three things need to be in balance: body, mind, and spirit. Your emotional intelligence, your physical intelligence, and your mind's intelligence. Your body has to be in line with what is going on. You have to incorporate some sense of sacredness, because we're sacred beings. We're all creative, sacred beings. And so finding a balance of all of that was really the challenge. But, I went through the anger, and I went through a lot of the things that go on with, when you find this diagnosis. It was very hard on my sister. My sister remained angrier than I did. At a point, I moved into acceptance of it, because I realized that I can't stay in anger too long, because that stops you from healing. And I personally chose not to do chemotherapy or radiation. So I did my own thing. And I'm not suggesting anybody do that. I'm not. You have again. From your comment of everybody needs to follow their own path.
Yes.
This was my path. Yeah. This was my path. I watched my father die of colon cancer, and I watched what those two things ended up doing to him. And I kind of, in my back of my mind, I'm like, oh, if I ever get cancer, I'm not doing those two things. So that's me. It's not anybody else. So, you just have to own what you want to do.
So where did you start on your healing journey?
So I've read like crazy. Nutrition, vitamins, used Essiac, which is an herb mixture that you could actually get in Portsmouth. Began to recognize how I might. It's not initially. You can't own what you might have contributed to your own. I'm speaking from like years, but initially you can't. My journey was that I need to pull this together. So I started from a physical standpoint of food. I recognized that I was not eating properly. Like I lived alone, so it wasn't like I was creating meals for anybody or whatever. And when my body would say to stop. So I began to recognize, when my body said stop, I wouldn't stop. So I began to recognize, what are my stressors? Get rid of them. I wrote them down. What are my stressors? One of which was news. And I mean, this now we're talking, 30 years ago. I mean, it's not even where it is today. God help us. So 30 years ago was even bad. So all the stressors, people in my life that stressed me, gone. News, I mean, whatever it was stressing me. If I'm doing this on my own, I have to look at everything. Everything in my life was up for grabs. Everything. Absolutely everything. And so what didn't support my spirit or didn't support this journey, I had to shed. And so I went through that process. I had to work because I still was working.
I was wondering about that. I mean, you
Yep.
still have to work, plus you have the treatment, or whatever you're going through. Is it?
Yep, it had to be a part of that. So I had to figure out, I made it so that one of my rules, which I still hold to today, no work on the weekends. No, like if I don't open up the computer on the weekend, I just said no work on the weekends. Absolutely, I need those days off. Sometimes from Friday afternoon on, I would, just forget about it. And a job would come in, like how in graphic design, like, oh, I need this out today, forgot, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, so then you take it on. You got to do something and get it all done. But I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that's done. If I'm going to do that during the week, then I have to do it. If I'm doing something that stressful, then I need to counter that by making a wonderful meal for myself, going for a nice walk, just being outside. Like I couldn't go through I'm pushing myself through this anymore. So and it takes a lot of discipline to do this. Yeah. I know, but you got cancer in your face. You're gonna have even like somebody said, it's a little bit of cancer. I said, yeah, it's kind of like being a little bit pregnant. I'm sorry, it is a wake up call. You're gonna take on this wake up call now. Are you gonna let it get larger? Are you gonna start really being proactive about your own self-care? So I started this whole self-care process. Then as I had that, Native American thing, I was always very connected to nature. It was always like I was a little kid that was outside in the puddle all the time and digging in the dirt and sitting next to the trees and not even realizing that the trees were talking to me and I'm talking back to the trees, but I had no idea that, we're having a conversation, So I was always a nature kid. My poor mother, who was a seamstress, like she would dress me up, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, take me out of this." She was like, "Yeah, true, you got everything." My mother, "You got everything. It's so wet, so dirty," and I go, "Take the dress off. I'm gonna be dirty,"
Your interest and sort of passion in Native American stuff really was ahead of its time in a certain way.
Yeah, but it felt so right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That now braiding sweetgrass.
Yes.
And, another book by Robin Wall Kimmerer, and the Heartbeat of Wounded Knee by David Troyer. It seems like it's finally kind of getting some traction.
Even
about
then,
what
though,
we did, to not, to conquer the
Chief Joseph. That's a whole nother story.
Yes,
Chief Joseph. My sister and I both clung on to Chief Joseph, and we had the privilege of actually going to his town when we went cross country. That was a little miracle right there.
It's in Oregon, right?
Yes, it's
somewhere in the Northwest.
Yeah, it's in the Walla Walla, Washington, in the Washington area. But we. There was a surgence of revitalization of it, even when we were doing it. Like there were retreats that we had gone to at Row Camp. Do you remember Row camp. Oh my God. So at road camps, my sister and I would go there when certain Native Americans were there. Wallace Wallace Black Elk, mainly. We really loved him. He was, and I had the privilege of actually doing sweat lodges with him, and we did the talks and everything else. It was a really wonderful long weekend. Oddly enough, one of the weekends that I had spent there, I have so many stories. One of the weekends I went there was a nun in full habit, and she went into the sweat lodge in full habit.
Really? Wow.
I mean, came out obviously dressed, dripping, but I heard her say to him, "I am so sorry for what we did. I had to come here."
Wow.
I was like, oh, I mean, it still gives me goosebumps. I'm like, oh my God. I mean, she was so brave to do that. I mean, it really was an amazing experience. But so there was even at that time. But then it moved with me. Okay, so in my journey, I was such a long journey with this whole spiritual thing because I ended up getting cancer again 5 years later. So same place, same area, and I said, all right. I'm still not gonna, all right, it's back, so I must not have done enough self-healing. So Dr. Bentley and Dr. Sazmore here at AJH talked with them, and they created a transflap for me, a mastectomy. I had a mastectomy. Now that time, this is now 24 years ago, they took the major muscles, the major muscles in your front, the transflap. So that's what's actually in my bone right now. So it left the surgery left me very damaged. And all right, so now we're talking a real physical change that's going on, here. That's when I got into yoga.
And how'd that come about?
Well, the funniest story is that my very, very dear friend, Lindley Briggs, wanted to do yoga. This is when Kate, the only yoga center in the whole town, Kate Wolf, had like an introductory 10-week thing, and she was like, I can't do it alone, you've got to do it with me. And this was about 9 months after my surgery, somewhere in there. I had the surgery in winter, and this was in the fall, and I said, no, I'm not going to do this. What am I going to do? I can't do this. And she goes, oh please. Oh, she's my very good friend. And I said, all right, I'll do it. So I did it with her. I went to the class. She'd want to go. It was a big class, at the time and everything. And first class, I loved it. I was like, oh, this is what I'm looking for. This is exactly what I'm looking for. A way to listen to my body that really helps me go inward. Like I really wanted to go inward in the yoga process. And it was very much like dance, the dance I did at Pratt. I mean, I recognized that, oh my God, we used to, before the class, do exercises, and they were yoga exercises. So like, I know these exercises. My body goes, oh, yay, So I started then, from that point. She dropped out, by the way. She hated it. And I ended up loving it so much that within weeks, I was doing at least 2 classes a week and sometimes 3 classes a week. And then I began to recognize that I really, really, really needed this, not only from a meditative standpoint, because I wasn't one of the people that could easily meditate. I needed to do, like I would thank God for Thich Nhat Hanh that, talked about walking meditations. I could do a walking meditation, but sit down and kind of hang out for a while. Oh yeah, no, not this one. That wasn't going to happen. But slowly I began to get my mind to quiet down, and my body got stronger. My body's messages and its spirit got stronger, and I can get that more of that balance between the mind, body, and spirit. So I had a lot of the sacred part of it going. I had already been through so much by this point. That now I was beginning to feel that 3-part connection. And the more I felt that 3-part connection, the more I wanted to go. in that direction. So I spent a lot of my 50s doing yoga trainings. So I did 2 major yoga trainings, one more in a Kapalu style, and with some local teachers, Chris Morton and Pam Britton. When they were doing that, we were in their first classes, and then I started recognizing Anusara, which was John Friend, and alignment based. And I really loved Anusara because with Anusara, even though my body was damaged, I could open it. And I was like, oh my God. I mean, I could actually begin to do things I could never do, even in my 30s. And I'm like, I'm in my 50s already, and I'm going, oh, okay, well, this is great. Not only have I gotten rid of the damage that was happening to my body, but it was actually opening up exponentially. So I started doing, when I was doing all of these yoga trainings, of course, it was a lot of the, the philosophy that we would go into, and it just kind of reinforced everything else that I was doing.
It was interesting what you said about the warm-up to the
Yes.
at Pratt, so that you're doing postures, but it's not being presented as yoga.
No.
And that's different from the spiritually based yoga that you emerged into,
Yes.
and has become such a big part of your life.
Yes.
And that I think that in this culture that we have, the spiritual essence of yoga is sometimes overlooked in the commercialism that's kind of followed the introduction of yoga, and it's not really the same in mindfulness. It's like these are very important spiritual paths that can get co-opted by commercial interests, unfortunately.
Yes, and first of all, there's all kinds of teachers out there, and there is students for all of those teachers. Again, talking about the individual,
Yes.
and the power of the individual. What I've noticed over these years of teaching, because if you come to my class, you will hear about sacredness and spirituality. That is a good part of what my class is all about. I don't think you get anywhere like where you do those crazy poses and all the crazy poses. You don't get there without going through a spiritual awakening, because you need to awaken your spiritual centers, 3 yoga centers, and use your body in a way that's whole to get to there if you are not a gymnast. But even if you're a gymnast, you will have to change how you do it to get into those poses. So what I recognize is when somebody would say to me, I don't want any of that spiritual stuff, or a teacher would say, like, oh, I don't teach from that, or you can't do any of that if you're in a gym or anything else. But you know what? The power of yoga gets through anyway. And I don't, I'm saying it over here, I watch how people change, and I see it through their bodies that they're getting it even if they're not getting it, because the power of yoga, it's like you cannot deny the spirit of what it is. Even if you want to rip it out and do all kinds of stuff, it doesn't go, because truth is truth. And so I say to myself, it's still going to come through. So I take that like little bit of a quote unquote worry from me or whatever else out, because if you're doing yoga, I know Spirit's got your back. And it's just going to kind of come through. When you have gotten into a place where you have entered a sacred space, even if they want to rip the spirituality out of it, you come to a sacred space anyway when you're doing yoga.
When I'm teaching beginners meditation, it's not uncommon for someone to say, well, I have no meditation experience, but I do all this yoga. And will say, you're doing meditation. You may not realize it, but if you're doing yoga, that is a form of meditation. and that any time you're bringing yourself fully into the present moment, that's all meditation is.
Yes. Yeah, and you know, you sound like for me, I had to do it from a physical
Yes,
standpoint
yeah.
first.
And everybody has their own way
Right.
of approaching it. You know,
Right.
You know, even with walking meditation versus sitting meditation. Some people like to walk, you know, or just doing yoga, or just being in nature.
Yes.
But it's all meditation if we're have that intention to be fully present and to return when we wander away.
Right. And, you know, before I actually did yoga, I actually walked the beach for every single day for 3 years at every sunset.
Wow.
Every single day. Didn't matter if it was foggy, rainy, snowy, whatever. That was, I mean, because I'm an artist, so I'm seeing everything too, right? You're
Yeah.
hearing, you're seeing. And so
yeah.
I could pull in all of my senses. That was part of my meditation, to be able to finally be able to sit quietly. Like it all helped me come into that centered place. And all, but you know, again, going back to what they were saying with you in meditation, you cannot balance if your mind is busy. You're not going to balance if you're thinking about driving, or I need to go to the shopping, and I need to get this. No, you're not going to balance. It doesn't happen.
Well, talking about walking, you mentioned in your bio the El Camino, and then the Jurassic Coastline. I don't know that one.
Yeah, well, in England.
Yeah.
In England. It was a walk, well, believe it or not, it was a walk that was originally created by the Parks, Newburyport Parks Department before it was eliminated. And the two directors there created this walk. And the El Camino group, the 6 original groups that actually did the El Camino together, we wanted to do another walk. So we were going to do that one, and then COVID hit. And so everything was eliminated. Everything was stopped, everything was canceled, and everything else. So after the world began to open up again, we wanted to still do this trip. So we ended up contacting a company in England, I think it's called Celtic Trails, who really, we gave them pretty much what was already put together for us, and they recreated it for us. So they scheduled the hotels and the everything else. But it's between Tynemouth and Lulworth. So it's all by the coast.
Is that on the west?
It's, you know how
coast of
England is in the
Yes.
bottom here? It's kind of here. It was kind
okay.
of here, not in the upper part, not in
Yeah.
Cornwall. It's more the Devon
Okay.
area. But it was an incredible journey, as it always is. You know, these things are always, you know, you're going to meet your edge. You always do.
And for people who aren't familiar with El Camino, can you say a little bit about
Yes,
that?
I can. In fact, I am helping 2 people right now who want to do the trip in 2025. And so you know the preparation that kind of goes along with this. So the El Camino is a 500-mile walk from Saint-Jean in France all the way to Santiago, and you're walking through the 500 miles in the top of Spain. This is a well-known, the Catholics took it over, but it was a Celtic trail, so many Irish go on this. And it's going through the various regions of Spain. And each one is kind of like the states in New England, even though they look so close. It's like, you know that you've gone into Maine. Like you cross over the border, it's like, oh yeah, this is Maine. Or you go into New Hampshire, like, yeah. And then you go, oh, Vermont, yeah. So it's like each of the regions were the same. Like they were very distinct, you know, walking through vineyards and everything else. But it is an exercise of meeting the universe every single day, and being prepared for is kind of like yoga, right? Your mind has to be there, your physicalness needs to be there, and your spirituality needs to be there, because you need to have room for everything that you're going to be dealing with. And it could be, you know, from maybe having a physical issue or a mental breakdown or something else that usually ends up accompanying doing something that rugged. You know, So I really, really love this trail. Yeah, and there were 6 of us that ended up doing it in earnest in the first time. That we did it in 2 parts. So the group went on the trail as a group. And we did Leon to Santiago, which is like the least that you can do to actually get a certificate that says that you've done the El Camino. But the six of us loved it so much that we said, no, we actually want to do the other 300 miles. So we went the following year. We arranged, we figured out how to actually do it ourselves. And we gave ourselves the other 300 miles to actually say that we did the whole thing.
And were you saying that this was a Newbury port? Organ?
Yes, well,
together?
the El Camino was originally arranged by Manny and his wife Christina from the Yoga Center. So that was that, and that we did in 2011, and then we went back in 2012. So it was a while ago. The England one just happened a year ago. Yeah, in 23. But that one, yes, it was a group. The Newburyport Parks Department had adult programs that were taken out, so as part of the cuts or whatever else. But we loved what they were doing. They had a very big following, so it was one of those.
Wow.
Yeah, one of those. But
Interesting.
yeah, so yeah, I love the El Camino.
Yeah, so we probably have about 10 more
Oh,
minutes.
10 more minutes. Okay.
I wanted to be sure to ask you about yoga hope.
Oh
If it
yes,
is,
yes, yes,
because
yes.
I think that
Yes,
is so important.
It
and
is.
Like our
It is so
viewers
important.
to hear about it.
Yes. So once a month, I do a program and create, of course, I'm an artist, right? So I create a lot of visuals that go along with these programs. And I try to create programs that are seasonal. And all of the programs are about self-healing. So I'm all about having a lot of skills and ways in your toolbox to heal. And so it can be any number of things, going to the traditional ones of yoga, meditation, self-inquiry, to be able to have somebody really look at what they're doing. And this, I have to show this one thing. Okay, hold on. Here we go. Here, I'm back. I love this one chart. This is a map of consciousness. It's kind of my Bible. If you're in my class, then you really have to live with this for a while until this becomes part of your everyday experience. But it's the vibrational, your emotions kind of brought out in vibration. So we're living through a lot of the anger, the fear, the despair, this bottom part kind of living out a lot in our society right now. As you move to the higher energies, these are depleting energies. These are energies that are, and you know that. Like if you're living in fear all the time, like there's no room for, nourishment or blessings or gratefulness or anything like that, because you're all consumed in this. But you need to recognize, I'm in anger, or why am I in anger? Or I'm in fear. I'm in fear all the time. And so what that ends up doing to your whole system, both your nervous system, your heart. I'm a big reader of the heart here. So so how do we incorporate some of these other higher peace, love, reason, acceptance? We know all of these things. We know them as words, but how do you know them in your body? How do you actually get to the place where you can be in love, letting these go? Recognizing, okay, so I'm in anger for, this moment in time. If you know that you can't be in anger and be whole, then you need to have a reason to get out of anger. First one is awareness. Oh, I'm in anger. Okay. then figuring out what the anger is all about, and then actually beginning to work to replace it. So I had like the gremlins in October. So like I said, I try to make it so that if you are involved with criticism, maybe one of the things you can replace it with is an affirmation, and it tells you how to do that. Or you're complaining. People complain. Well, stop the complaining, bring more gratitude in. Or self-pity replaced with responsibility. So these are like tools, ways in which we are looking at how that mind, body, spirit connection works, and what do we do to get ourselves out of that?
So is there a group format that's supplemented by these handouts, or those are the
Yeah. Once a month we meet at Roots to Wings,
and how do people sign up for that?
They can go to Roots to Wings website and look for the courses or the courses on their website. So once a month. It's usually the first Saturday of the month. I try to hold to that. Arlene Damon does her restorative class on the second Sunday of the month. So we try not to do it so that it's back to back, so that people have a rest in between. Because if you're in full treatment, you don't want to do back to back anything.
So you can join at any time.
At any time.
It's sort of a rolling
It
admission
is.
in that sense.
Yes, you
So
might have to catch up a little bit.
Right, but there's a kind of cyclic quality in terms of how you
Right.
teach it.
But every month I will do another thing.
Yes, yeah. different
We will experience its
yeah.
theme. It builds on one another. So if you didn't catch what was before, then we may have to catch you up again. Of course, anybody that's new is going to come into it, and they're going to get this handout, and we can talk about it.
And is there yoga going on during these sessions?
Well,
or is it, talk about
okay,
sort of
talk
like,
about
run
it
us
a little
through
bit.
that. Yeah.
No yoga. There's no yoga involved.
Okay.
There are 8 parts to yoga. One of the 8 is asana. The rest
Right.
is self-inquiry, pranayama, meditation, the breathing, the meditation, the studying, self-study. This is self-study.
Yes.
This is all about, you've got something here, you have an opportunity to transform yourself, because now you have good reason to transform yourself. How are you going to transform yourself? That's what I want to get at. So I give them ways of looking at it, but they have to catch the fire.
Yes.
They're the ones, it's like you were talking about, they're the ones that really have to say, oh, I identify with this way of doing things, or I identify with that way of things. So I just put a lot of things out on the table and say, you may not identify with everything, but you might identify with one thing. Oh, that's good for me. That's all I'm doing is presenting kind of a buffet, and you choose from the buffet that works for you.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody is different.
Everybody has to be different. I want to know how. Like, I'm so interested in the people who are in my class. Where are you going? What are you doing? How are you doing it? How did the spark hit you? Like just really being part of their journey. I love that it's all different. Again, we go back to I love the diversity of the planet. It's meant to be that way. I'm more curious about how they take it and what they do with it than anything else. So what I do is I just figure out a way to give them this smorgasbord, and thank goodness, because my path was so diverse in its own way, I have a lot to choose from, and I look at things from that lens of everything is healing. How do I communicate it? Mm-hmm. How do I communicate how the moon first thing in the morning will set me straight for the rest of the day, because I decided to meditate in the freezing cold outside to get the message of the moon. That's not everybody's thing, but it is my thing, you see. So it's crazy. It can be a crazy thing, and I love that it can be crazy. you know.
Crazy wisdom.
Crazy, but you know you got to follow the crazy. You know, I love this book. The boy, the mole, the horse, and the fox and the horse. And the one page, you know, the boy was talking to the mole about, you know, like the mole says something like, "Oh, I figured out how to meditate," and the boy said, "Oh, how did you do that?" He goes, "I sit and I stay quiet." And the boy says, "And then what?" And then he goes, "And then I focus." And the boy goes, "Oh, what do you focus on?" And the mole goes, "Cake." Because he loves cake.
Right.
It's just like, what do you love?
Yeah.
What do you love? I love sitting outside in the freezing cold talking to the moon. That's what I love. That's my cake.
All right.
That's what I'm focusing on. What are you focusing on? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's a very, very creative and a wonderful thing.
So this sounds close to our closing question.
I know. What is it?
What do you suggest people do to help on their spiritual journey?
Oh boy, open yourself up to whatever first you got to listen to your heart. What is in your heart? What is calling you out? Like, where do you feel happy? You know, where do you feel like you are at home? Because wherever that is, that is showing you where your soul is at home. You know, I always laugh and joke. I say I must have had a lifetime where I was up in the mountains somewhere, you know, just kind of sitting outside meditating all the time, because that's where I feel okay, is outside meditating more than inside. So you know, go where your soul is telling you to go. Look for ways of being positive in your life. I mean, if you're living in the lower aspects of fear and anger and everything that is being thrown at us on a daily basis, stop the news if you don't want to be listening to that. Add this in. Let all of that go. Let all of that go. Your main focus is to be loved and to love. And that is the question. Are you able to be loved? We will allow that. And what do you love? And
That's
why?
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for all your sharing and all your good work
No, I'm so excited,
over
right?
the years and today. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for coming in. And
Oh,
talking
thank you
with
for
us,
this
Rose. It's
opportunity.
really been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So thank you, listeners and viewers, and we'll be back again next month, and hope you join us again.